Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's Hey, did you see this one? Live. And over to you, Steve. This week's host is Steve.
Hi.
Nailed it. We did it.
It's me, Steve.
We did it. I'm just not going to check the audio levels while Steve does his little intro bit.
Yeah, hey, welcome to the intro. My name's Steve. I'm joined today with my co-hosts Jason and Kaylin.
Hello, it's me, Jason.
To start a we're in the middle of a weird themeless month, I guess. It's not really a theme, but
blockbuster.
Sort of like movies that took over summers when they came out, even if they only did it in marketing and the movies still sucked, like the movie we're going to talk about today, a little flick called Reign of Fire, directed by some guy named Rob Bowman, who I believe only directed one other movie and then got booted back to TV. But there's a lot of stars in this movie, a lot of people that were not even people that were starting their careers, people who were already pretty established. There's a few that were just getting their sort of kickstart, but a couple of others who are like, super famous at the time. Matthew McConaughey, Christian Bale, Gerard, Butler, and a couple of other noteworthy names. I don't really know what else Izabella Scorupco is in. I think she's in a bunch of stuff. She's very familiar looking. Like, you're in things.
Is that Alex, the one
Alex,
in the
movie? Pilot or whatever?
Yeah, who? Alex? Yeah, her name was Alex. Me and Danny just thought that their name was Lady, Helicopter Lady.
I wrote when they introduced her, they said her whole name, and I wrote it down. They did the same thing with Matthew McConaughey's character, and I wrote it down. But
her name's Van Zandt.
No, he wanted to make sure everyone called him Van Zandt on the set, during in between filming.
Oh, classic method actor.
He probably named his own character.
Yeah.
He's like,
I was gonna shave my head and do just the beard for this episode, but then I was like, this took me about a year now, and I'm already upset that I cut it the first year of COVID or whatever.
His character, his fame, let me start over. He was probably the most famous person in this movie at the time. Christian Bale had been working since he was a kid, but Christian Bale hadn't really popped off yet. I think The Machinist is
Batman
after
Begins
this.
Came out before this movie, so he was popped at this point. Yeah,
this is 2002.
The Machinist did it?
Isn't this? This is between Batman Begins and the Joker movie, is it not?
I thought this was one of the earlier ones,
yeah,
and American Psycho was the one that kind of set him up.
This is 2002.
Okay, well, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I, for some reason, thought that this was maybe it was just before Batman, but anyway.
He's still got a Cockney accent in this movie. He's still walking around saying, oh, this and that.
I want a British accent.
Also, Alexander Siddig, who plays Dr. Bashir on Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
And Gotham's Ra's al Ghul.
I was going to say, yeah.
I mean, I was referring more to stuff that he would have been known for before this movie, but
he wasn't known much later for his.
Yeah, he wasn't known as the
Ra's
guy in
al
the
Ghul.
wheelchair from Game of Thrones who gets stabbed.
What about that kid?
His daughters. Yeah, Joffrey. Joffrey shows up for
Joffrey is
split
4 years
second
old
in this movie. Yeah. Actually, every time there's a scene with all the kids, he is there. I kept pointing him out. There he is. There's that little asshole. Yeah, he's got a weird inbred-looking face.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, he grew up to be quite handsome, but as a kid, he looked very odd. He looked like weird
debatable.
Doll. I mean, okay, he grew up to be normal looking.
He grew up to be, but he looks like he's kind of.
No, he's got a unique look that he has grown up into.
He's got a unique look, just like the actor that plays Draco Malfoy, where they can only play assholes forever.
Yeah, he's got the puckered asshole face.
Playing a wholesome kid.
Yeah, he returns in Batman Begins to play a wholesome kid in Batman Begins.
Exactly, Gordon's kid, right?
I don't think he's Gordon's kid. I think he's just some kid.
He's just some kid who like sees Batman, and Batman's like, he's looking at you, kid.
Yeah.
Right?
And then
That's-
Batman.
Doesn't he give him a batarang or something?
Yeah, he flips him a bat coin. So yeah, I guess we'll hop into the actual discussion, or our introductions, I should say. Excuse me, I burped. I didn't do it into the mic, even though I should have done a real deep ass burp right in.
No, don't do that to our viewers.
I would never.
Oh, we got a couple people watching.
Also, how does your mic pick up your mouth? It's over by your eyes.
That's not my mic. I have a mic that is big and right in front of me here.
Oh, what do I know?
This is just so I can hear you guys. So the movie Rain of Fire. I guess we'll start with Jason. Jason, when was the first time that you watched the movie Rain of Fire?
The first time I watched this movie was between last week and this week. So we were supposed to do this movie last week. Steve died. Kaylin was also dying. We had to. Well, that was the previous week when we did Flintstones, but I started watching the movie and then I put it down because we were going to push a week, and I need to watch these movies like as close to the podcast as possible to feel like I'm still in it.
Especially this movie because it's extremely forgettable.
The middle part, the second act of this movie is like you could easily take a nap during. But what I will say is I did finish it today. And after you get through that second act, there's a shell of a movie in here, which we'll get into when we talk about the movie. That was the first time I saw it. However, what I will say, this movie came out at the dawn of torrenting. And I remember this movie being very popular with people because it was unlike anything that had come out, really. It was about this, it was like almost like a post-apocalyptic, like almost like what zombie movies are now, where there's like a small area that they're contained to, and there's these dragons running rampant. And I remember hearing about the concept of this movie and thinking, man, that's fucking next level. And but I never watched it. I never got around to watching it. And I feel like if I would have watched it in 2002, I would have been like, hell yeah, I love that movie. But now, not so much. We'll get into the nitty-gritty about this film, though.
All right, Kaylin, when is the first time that you saw the movie Rain of Fire?
Oh, hello. The first time I saw this movie was, if I'm not mistaken, it was in theaters when it came out, but it was, so it was like a family day, like or not exactly a family day, but like my mom was seeing a guy at the time, and every once in a while we would go to the movies. But the thing that drove me insane is we were always late or whatever. Like I like previews to like, see what's coming up, but at the very least I got to see the whole movie, right? But so we used to go to movies a lot back in the day, but we would always be late, which drove me insane, but it's not like I could do anything. Anyway, so I didn't see the first part of this movie in theaters. Actually, I think I saw it the first time watching it the other week for getting ready. But I saw it when it came out in theaters. And at the time, and we'll also, again, talk about it now, but like at the time, I was like, okay, that was fine. Like it was a movie, but like I wasn't like captured by it or whatever. And I mentioned some to you, Stephen, in like the group chat a little while, like the other day when we were talking about it, which we'll bring up later or whatever. But just in regards to, what's the word? Like not being, what was the word I said? What's the word when you're invested? I wasn't like invested or whatever.
Invested?
And like, cause it's kind of like set up for the dragons to be the antagonist, but at the same time, they also kind of set up Matthew McConaughey's Van Zandt as like an antagonist. And maybe you can speak to this more from like your background, but like, is there like a name?
My background as an antagonist?
That's known as a foil.
Okay.
There's
Yeah,
usually a foil.
he's not an antagonist to the classical degree, but when your bad guys are dragons with no voices, they can't really engage with the main characters in dialogue that will prove that they are in some way villainous. You need to have a character who is, sort of not like anti-hero is not the word, but like more of a gray figure that can come in and poke at the protagonist.
He was a bit of a bully. He was still on his side, but like
they're all on the same side, but they're not.
Male
but they don't see eye to eye, and like that's kind of the whole point of the movie.
He's got the best.
They play up a lot of the U.S. versus Britain sentiment too, which is
this movie is like the common misconception that World War II would not have been won if America didn't jump in the last second. So I guess are you done, Kalen, or?
Yeah, on to you, Steve.
All right, Reign of Fire. I remember walking to the movie theater in the year 2002, 20 years ago at this point. This is the 20th anniversary of Reign of Fire. But
I think it came out in July as well. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, I believe it did. It was a super hot day, and I remember just being so relieved to get inside of an ice cold movie theater and then sit down and watch a movie with a bunch of people being burned alive and being like, yeah, that ain't nothing. You ain't been walking down Steeles Avenue in the middle of July. The concrete jungle over here. I don't really remember if I liked it or hated it. I did, upon watching it again, be like, I feel like I've never seen this movie. Outside of the very beginning of the movie and the very end of the movie. Not even the very end of the movie, just when Matthew McConaughey is jumping through the air. Like, it's him jumping through the air and the opening, and I didn't remember anything else.
How are you going to win that fight?
That's not the point, Kalen. He wanted to die.
Matthew McConaughey's look in this movie, I feel like they show all the time when they're showing like Matthew McConaughey retrospectives or like iconic looks.
It's because he's at one of his like hottest points in life in this movie.
Because
he was pretty jacked. He was
super jacked, and also he had a cool look, and also like
he was badass.
It's unique. He usually up till this point he usually played some sort of similar dumbass character to Fast Times Days of Confused.
And then continued to do that again for years afterwards.
Well,
when you're good at something.
Tugger nuts, what's going on? You get your Pivo yet?
Cooler if you did.
All right. He did do like more recently. He's an Oscar award winner, at least nominated. So he's done some higher profile stuff like Lincoln Lawyer and Dallas Buyers Club, I believe. Is he in that?
Yeah.
Interstellar, which is a banger.
Interstellar.
Remember that movie?
Two for the Money I haven't seen in a while, but I feel like that was good.
I think that he's probably one of those actors that people look at his career and they're like, that's a good career. He's had a good career because he's been able to be in every genre of movie and be good. He's not really an actor that sleepwalks through anything. When he's in a movie
in 10 days.
Okay, do you want to list his whole filmography? Is that what we're gonna do?
He's kind of like a Brad Pitt, where like his early career was all kind of like
TV.
Yep, played doofuses and then kind of had a breakout point. I think Brad Pitt had his breakout point a little bit earlier, but he is a Hollywood beefcake dreamboat, much like Matthew McConaughey's career was. He just played into the 70s hippie vibe a lot longer.
I don't know if it was. I mean, if you consider the fact that this movie came out 20 years ago, like his doofus stage was relatively short compared to.
That's true. 20 years ago.
Afterwards, yeah.
20 years ago for us 35 plusers feels like
it would have been
4 years ago.
Right.
So you have to think about it kind of like the way that our brains are. Like our parents probably in the late 90s were like, yeah, 1979 was like 5 minutes ago. What are you talking about?
Yeah, they're like, we just got the kitchen redone in 1988. Anyway, but I don't really remember my first time viewing outside of like it being I remember the walk to the movie theater more than I remember the movie is the point that I was trying to make. The reason I chose this movie though is I do remember it being very excited for it. But I also do recall I worked at that same movie theater years later, and I was in university, and I was asked to go do inventory in the back of a bunch of new product that we had just got, and I went into this room, and it was just stocked like toe to tip, floor to ceiling with Rain of Fire standees and popcorn bags and like weird stuff that must have just been littered all over the theater when the movie came out. So, you know, abiding by the rules that we had chosen for this month's theme, which is like a movie that like took over marketing campaigns for the season, which clearly didn't do this movie any favors because it barely made its budget back. And if I am to believe correctly, the marketing budget was probably massive on this, which means it lost money at the end of the day.
What I did some I had while I was watching the movie, my colleague that I work with kept asking me like over the last couple weeks, he knew we were doing the movie, and he enlightened me to the fact that this movie has such a weird second half, like seemingly rushed, because they blew the money load on like the CGI basically. So they didn't have, if they would have fleshed this movie out a little bit more, did some more world building, didn't like spent less money on the CGI, like the CGI holds up, it looks great. I can't believe it's 20 years old. Not all of it, but some of it looks really fucking good for its time.
For the main parts, yeah.
But the thing is like if they would have just chilled out a bit, maybe did some more practical. There's a little bit of practical, but it's like even bad practical. Like it's fucking weird how the practical is like bad. But they could have fleshed this movie out, and it could have been like a cool movie we remember as like a hit movie of its time. But instead, it feels like they just like splooshed money and just pushed out this thing. They had all the actors, like all the big actors. Gerard Butler was like brand new on the scene. He did a great job. It's all these like great British thespian feeling actors as well. I guess Matthew McConaughey, and it just kind of stumbles and falls on its face because I think that money pulled it in too many directions. Money ran out. They were like, the studio's like, we just got to get this thing out. And that's why you have the situation that Steve ran into, where you work at a theater, you see piles of just merchandise
leftover.
I wanted to say too, Steve, the reason why I'll never forget the Hulk movie is very similar, because it was a scorcher of a day. We were drinking in the park, and I had I had like sunstroke watching it, so I had a migraine, and then on top of that movie's garbage. So imagine watching the Hulk, the original Hulk movie, not the Incredible Hulk, the Ang Lee fucking.
I mean, they're both not great. But I actually kind of like the Ang Lee one more than I like the Edward Norton one.
It feels more like a classic movie. It's like it's pre-MCU, so it feels like a movie.
Excuse me, Nick Nolte turns into all the elements at the end, and he's like, hey, I gotta fight you now.
Fucking Nick Nolte? How can you not love that guy?
Nick Nolte is great. But I had a migraine, so much like you were walking down the main streets of Steeles Boulevard in Brampton, in Bramalea, Ontario.
I think you're saying a bunch of
not really, but no, they're very far away from each other.
Well,
you could not walk that distance.
Steeles runs very like it's a large road, is my point. Anyway,
it is.
I know what it feels like to be like, to remember something based on the summer, and I fucking just had this splitting headache. Like I puked. I got up out of the movie and threw up, and went back into the movie and was like, I gotta see this Hulk thing. I'm a Marvel fan.
This Hulk thing better rock. Cool. So I guess we can move on from the introductions and start walking our way through the story, and I guess we'll just talk as we go. Because there's not too much, and there's like a lot of weird little micro scenes in this movie that are meant to develop characters, but they don't really do a great job of explaining anyone. At the end of the day, you know what the individual characters believe, but there's like so many refusal of the calls with Christian Bale. Like he refuses the call several times, and it's like offered to him several times throughout the movie for him to be the hero, and he keeps saying no up until like the last 15 minutes of the movie, which it should be somewhere around the beginning of Act 2 that a person decides to become the hero, but instead you get Matthew McConaughey walk in, and he's the one who's like, "Nah, I'm gonna be the one."
Is refusal of the call the hero's journey? Is part of the hero's journey?
Yes, yes, yeah. So like, there's like always a call to action in most movies, and generally there is a refusal of the call by the main character, and then something happens in the movie that then forces the character to answer the call. It's part of the hero's journey, but it's also part of a bunch of other different sort of like breakdowns of literature and all sorts of stuff. But in this example, what I'm trying to say,
I'm not going to do it. We're going to stay in this castle.
But he does that so many times that it's like annoying. Where you're like, okay, when are you gonna go fight?
He's being safe. Like, because
I understand why he's doing it, but in the formulaic of like making of a movie, it's not interesting, and it makes the character boring, and it makes it seem like he's not a great character.
We're gonna go out and we're gonna kill that cunt.
But maybe they wanted to do something different than the regular cookie cutter formula that Hollywood's always pushing.
Okay, it didn't work though.
That's the thing with when you make things realistic, it's not as entertaining.
Yeah. So like, I mean, it can be entertaining, but in a movie where there's dragons that have burned the entire earth, like having the people act as though they're being realistic is probably not the best idea.
And the whole thing where I think that the elevator pitch for this movie was like, what if in a post-apocalyptic in a post-apocalyptic world, it's like medieval times again, and the executives like, we got ourselves a movie, let's get giant CGI dragons.
I mean, honestly, the elevator pitch for this movie, I would totally be like, sick, that sounds like awesome. We're gonna do like a modern day King Arthur's tale with dragons. They'll be bunkered down in a post-apocalyptic world inside of a castle. That sounds amazing to me, and I was really excited for this movie because it had all these weird elements of like Terminator and a bunch of fantasy movies, Jurassic Park. It even feels like a little bit like Alien at times. Like there are all these things that work really well as individual pieces to a puzzle, but that it's like when you're trying to slot them together, like all the pieces are wrong. You're like, wait a minute, these pieces don't fit together at all.
The part towards the beginning where they first see the dragon for the first time,
in the elevator.
It looks terrible. The CGI looks so bad.
But the armor,
that was their elevator.
To our previous point, the armor that they're wearing was almost that representation of a medieval armor that knights would wear.
Oh, sorry, you're talking about the tomato field part?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the elevator.
No, not the literal elevator at the very beginning. That
was me because I was making fun of the elevator pitch.
That opening part felt a lot like the Super Mario Brothers movie to me. It felt like the way the Super Mario Brothers movie starts, where it's like, it's just a wall in a cave.
I mean, the dragon did look almost as bad as Bowser at the end of the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Maybe we should watch Mario Brothers again.
I want to watch that movie.
To the point that you were making before of like some of the CGI looking great and some of it looking bad. Within this moment, I was like, this is when you want the CGI to look the best, or you hide. And they did try and hide the dragon at times, but then they do like a giant eyeball close up, and it just looks like a video game cutscene. And it looked like the dragon from Dragonheart, which came out like years earlier. And I was just like, man, oh man, they should have had it like use the practical effects in this moment and just have it kind of dripping the flames out of the shadow. Absolutely. Don't have it do like a crazy move or anything. Just have it be deep in the shadow, maybe just his eyes and some saliva dripping down into the fire. Just hide it for as long as you can, because that tomato field scene, only a couple of scenes later, you flash forward in time after young Quinn, played by some kid but ends up being Christian Bale as he's older. They go to this tomato field, these sort of like people that want to leave the settlement in order to try and get a harvest of the food and blah, blah, blah. But like the CGI in that moment, they do that. They hide it in the mist and they show it in like in silhouette in the distance. And then when it does show up, they cut to it quickly and it's almost completely black and it's just fire coming out. And you're like, this looks great.
And a third of the budget is shown on screen.
That's I think you might be right. Like that scene looks so good.
Yeah.
And like
the fire looked really good. Yeah.
And
that
like
scene, and then like the end sequence was probably most of the money, because the male dragon at the very end looked fucking dope. I thought that shit was great, and I like a good fucking dragon fight. But man, that looked expensive compared to like the other shit where they're just like hold down in a cave. It's
but
probably
it's
like
even within that scene, in the end scene, it's inconsistent. Like it's not like the budget doesn't show throughout the whole scene. It shows in moments for sure.
yeah.
But like even somehow like Matthew McConaughey jumping through the air just somehow looks off. You're
It
like,
looked
that he
like-
doesn't. I mean, I know he's not actually jumping off of off of Big Ben or whatever the fuck he's climbing up.
Do you know what that scene really reminded me of and looked like?
Super Mario Brothers.
Wolverine Origin, when they're fighting on top of the
that stack or whatever
the stack at the nuclear power plant, and there's a scene where it's kind of angling up at Deadpool, and the background just looks like trash. Like it just that's what that looked like. It was just bad grade screen. The color grading is all fucked in this movie. It's like really inconsistent.
Yeah, I think that
grays and blacks.
There's a lot of stuff that's filmed in studio, but like there's so many exteriors, and they wanted to keep the consistency of like the whole world is covered in smoke all the time, and so that they probably filmed somewhere that is constantly foggy and has bad weather. But if there was ever good weather, they'd be like, all right, I guess we gotta desaturate the fuck out of this and just CG the background. So yeah, the movie opens with young Quinn, and he's visiting the construction site of a big giant drill that's burrowing through the underground of London, building a tunnel. He's bringing an acceptance letter to his mom for I guess a private school that he's been accepted into, like a preparatory school, which is, it costs money compared to public school. And she's like, that's going to cost £3 a year or some shit. And, or sorry, 3,000 quid a year.
Quid.
We can't afford that. And I'm like, what the fuck? You're like the primary engineer on a tunneling job in
Steve,
London. You're making so much money.
It's a trope that scientists don't make money in movies.
Is that a trope?
They probably
she's not a scientist. She's an engineer.
It's a trope that I've invented, but it's a trope nonetheless. If you look at all the movies,
well, also she's not a scientist. She's an engineer. They're different things.
Yeah, they do science.
They do rock science.
They do rocks. Well, that's a geologist. An engineer builds shit.
No, not the science of rocks. The science of how to destroy rocks safely.
Right.
She's probably just not established yet.
Well, she's like the lead engineer, so she's definitely established.
Maybe she got lucky. Maybe this is going to be her big break.
Maybe. Anyway, my point is they don't really need to have that moment where he realizes he can't go to school. It does not inform anything about the movie whatsoever, except that they're maybe poor for some reason. And
he
never
has
comes
a single
back.
parent mother.
That opening scene is useless because you could just start the movie in the future and just do a quick, even during the credits, just show the timeline, kind of like when there's that scene later where they're flipping through the Time magazine and you can't even read anything. That's stupid too. We'll get to it, but they could have just done a quick during the opening credits, just had this timeline on screen of what happened, and then it's just Christian Bale.
Well, they wanted to have a monster movie opening, right? Like they wanted to have this sort of
I just thought of something though. Check this out. So his paternal instincts when he's older, he got from his mother because he was raised solely by his mother.
Yeah, that's fine. What I'm saying, the fact that the parents are divorced, keep that in. That is something that informs his character. The fact that they're poor and can't afford to keep going to school.
That's why he's so reluctant to pick up the mantle or whatever to be the leader, right? Like he's being more protective and you know what I mean? Kind of feminine, paternal.
That's a perfect point. Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. But why do you have the fucking acceptance letter for the school in there? You don't need it. It's a bunch of bullshit that doesn't matter. I guess maybe they just needed a reason for him to go visit his mom, but it could have been anything. I don't understand it. I was watching it, I'm like, what? Why did they have that? Unless he held on to the letter for his whole life and never opened it or something.
It doesn't really pay off
cool. Then did a flashback.
It doesn't really pay off either that he's familiar with the dragons and was there when it started. That never really
does, sort of
a little bit, but
he's never... I know where the bull lives because that's the bull at the beginning of the movie, and
yeah.
So he was the first one to see it and the last one to see it, kind of thing, which is kind of cool.
How did they start and how do they keep going?
how do the dragons start and how do they keep going?
Yeah, because
Well,
like there's
didn't you-
only
didn't
one
you watch
male, right?
the
Like where
bloody
does that
opening
one
where
come from?
they burn the world and they burn the dinosaurs and they cause the ashy ice age.
They were
Yeah,
a different kind of
I think the
dinosaur.
idea
They got
is
trapped
like,
underground. I don't know why they're
it's
Australian.
like the bull is like immortal, I guess. Like the male dragon is immortal, and like
Okay.
so after he
Maybe
kills
hibernate
everything,
something.
after
Yeah.
he kills everything on Earth, he starts eating his own kind, which is what's happening at the end of the movie. He's eating other
Right.
dragons. After he eats all the other dragons, he goes back underground. The eggs lay dormant, I guess, elsewhere on the planet. He probably like seeks out the eggs after he wakes up and like digs them out and jizzes all over them and then flies away, and a bunch of dragons start
So,
popping up everywhere.
Was he frozen? Because if he was, that's
He was just sleeping in a hole.
Okay.
Hibernating. He
'Cause
just
if
has
he
a
was
really long
frozen-
hibernation.
we would have ourselves an Encino Man situation. I love an Encino Man situation. There's not
No,
enough.
he
of them
wasn't.
in
He wasn't. Remember the kid? They like burrow into that hole at the beginning, and it's real steamy and wet
Yeah. Oh,
inside,
yeah.
and it's just like sleeping on the ceiling or whatever. Also,
looking terrible.
looking real bad. Yeah. So anyway, it spits in. The kid goes into the hole, finds the bull. The bull spits on him. He runs to his
Yeah,
mom.
what was the spit? Was it like gasoline or something?
It's two chemicals secreted by different glands on either side of the throat that, when combined, make like an inflammatory
They
liquid.
make napalm.
It's basically a natural napalm, is what they
Yeah.
explain it as in the movie.
Should that have
Nutri-
fucked up his face more then?
Well, it seems like he only got one of the chemicals on his face, not both. So if both of them had mixed, he would have been incinerated. But
Okay,
maybe
gotcha.
that dragon hasn't been like spitting in a long time, in like a million years or whatever. So it's just like just squirted one out by accident. Like, oops, I meant to get you with both.
Come back here so I can get you with the other shit.
Yeah, damn it. I'll just burn your friends instead.
He was doing, when you clear one side of your nose, he was doing one of
Rocketing.
those.
I love a good rocket.
Ugh,
Not
disgusting.
Yeah.
You're
I love
vile, both of
It's
you.
like my favorite. It's
Yes,
my favorite
we are.
feeling.
Yeah, the beginning scene is sort of like it has a little bit of payoff later in the movie, but overall it doesn't really do much other than to show when the dragons woke up. I guess it felt a lot like a reshoot to me. Like, there was just something about it that I'm like, was this even
We need 5
originally
more
in the-
minutes.
especially because the CG is so bad. Like, ugh.
Yeah.
It feels like they stapled that on and they're like, we don't have enough budget to make this dragon look good right now, so oof, sorry.
They had that joke though when the mom's like, "What have you been smoking?" It's like, "Oh, I only smoke when I drink."
Yep.
That made me
Gross.
laugh. Did that not make you guys laugh?
No, it made me think that she's a horrible parent.
Oh,
Hey, my parents drank and they weren't terrible.
But did they let you drink when you were 11?
that was a
Nope.
joke. The kid was making a joke. He's a
I don't know,
smart ass,
man.
smart ass kid.
It seemed like he probably does drink. Yeah, so then the mom dies as the dragon escapes, and we then have a little sad moment of him realizing his mom's dead. We have a montage of Christian Bale's voiceover, which sounds really fast. Like, it seems like when he was recording it, he was probably taking his time with everything. But then when they edited it together, they cut out all the like breaths
Pauses,
to make it
yeah.
sound like he was just talking in one giant long sentence that doesn't end. And you're like, oh my God, slow down, Christian Bale. This isn't that long of a movie. You can take your time. And he explains that the dragons have like work in cycles, I guess. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. It doesn't really play into the plot later in any way. But we fast forward to 20 years later, or 18 years later, I guess.
Did you catch what year the movie is?
2020.
This year,
This
or
is-
not this year, 2020.
The year of
Yes.
COVID. So we had our own reign of fire, but it was a reign of COVID.
Yeah, this
They
is.
were.
You know what? At the end of the day,
what's it called when you
COVID almost killed as many people as the dragons.
It's a metaphor. They predicted a metaphor.
predictive programming or whatever? Yeah.
No,
Oh.
this is just like an alternate universe where instead of COVID, dragons took over. Took over the whole world.
I think I'd rather dragons.
I don't know. I think you'd be. I don't know if that would be true if you were
They
dealing with dragons right now
COVID
instead of just
killed-
having to wear a mask.
COVID killed a few million people, which sucks. It's awful, but there's billions of people on Earth. From what I gather in this movie, there's like 400 people left on
It
Earth.
seems like there's like a couple that like in the hundreds of thousands.
Well, they thought they were the only ones left until the Americans showed up, and then at the end of the movie, they get their communications back up and realize that people are alive in France still. So it's probably like
Right,
pockets
okay,
around the
yeah.
world.
Gotcha.
It's a real Encino Man situation.
Yeah, this movie is basically just Encino Man. They probably jacked. the
Brendan
whole
Fraser's the
script.
dragon.
Yeah,
Brendan Fraser used to
buddy.
be cool.
We send the juice. Other quotes from that movie. I
Movie
think you
lines.
stuck open your
movie
cones.
lines. So we flash forward to the year 2020, where Christian Bale is now jacked, and they're installing a watering system, like a shower system sort of thing, beneath a castle, which it kind of like at first I was like, what are they doing? And then I was like, oh, it's probably for if there's a fire, everybody goes down there and gets inside the water, which is like, seems also dangerous if dragons are cooking a castle. Wouldn't it just like create a horrible steam situation where all of your like meat melts off your body?
Yeah.
I don't know if the
Make a
logic there is
stew.
sound. You get an establishment of this community. You can see that they have a community that works together, but then there's also sort of back and forth between different members of the community, disagreeing on what they should be doing as a community. Christian Bale's character believes that they should stay there until the harvest is ready, and the other ones want to go harvest right now. Christian Bale, I guess, having some sort of background in farming, knows that if you leave them till the point that they're ready to be harvested, there'll be germination and you'll be able to plant more the next season and you'll have an even better harvest next season. But the other guy's like, there isn't going to be another season. We just need tomatoes now.
Yeah.
Which is fair. Like, they're both right. They're both correct in their own ways. But it does give a good sort of indication that the community that they have, even though they seem to be working well together, there are rifts within it and disagreements.
I'm of two minds about this. So on the one hand, it's like Christian Bale's character, Quinn was probably right. If they would have just waited, maybe this incident with the first dragon wouldn't have happened. But I feel like even if they had waited, it would just, like the other guys saying, it would just prolong the dragon coming and fucking with them. I think that it would have been smarter to at least test the odds of waiting, because the whole point was he wanted to germinate the tomatoes so they could have another harvest. So, and also the guy who the first foil antagonist dude seems super reckless when he's out there. They're like out there just like flailing around,
Eddie or
eating
something.
tomatoes. Fucking
Yeah, it kind of also disgusted me a little bit. I'm like, I get it, you haven't had tomatoes in a while, but everybody looks pretty well fed on this settlement.
I'm gonna eat this
They're all
tomato right
jacked.
here.
Like, it's not
He
like
pulls
everybody's emaciated and dying.
Pulls out a pepper shaker.
Yeah. Cuts it with
Hey,
a,
have you
like
ever
a
tried
sliver off of
ketchup
it.
on tomato? A slice of tomato with some ketchup is delicious.
I don't believe you. Well,
Me
I
neither.
guess
It's got vinegar in it.
I don't like ketchup. So.
I do like ketchup. I kind of actually agree. I believe you, Kaylin, because I do put tomato on my hamburgers. So.
Hamburgers, tomatoes, ketchup.
I don't know. I would just like a little bit of salt, maybe, or just fucking eat some tomato. I don't know if I would.
I like.
Have you ever
tomatoes
eaten a
just on
tomato
their
like an
own.
apple?
Yeah.
When you burst into that pocket of juice, it's the most amazing thing ever.
Yeah, man.
Fuck, I can't remember what we were talking about now.
Pocket of juice.
No, not pocket of juice.
Tomatoes germinating.
Tomato.
Eddie being
There's
right, but
Savage.
Bale also being right. Or Quinn.
Yeah, I mean, you can also say that without that initial attack, the Americans may not have found them in the first place, and then the whole movie wouldn't have happened, and they wouldn't have been able to defeat the dragons at the end. So it all works out in the end. Also, it's just, it gives you an excuse to show the dragons way earlier than I expected. I thought it was going to be, maybe like an alien situation where you don't see them for like 40 minutes. Like the first Alien movie, there is no appearance of an alien until 40 minutes in. Whereas this, it's like 20 minutes and you got a big dragon burning up their entire crops field.
You also get to see the dragon pretty, even though it's bad CGI, pretty up close immediately.
Yeah, but this is also the scene where I'm like, the effects actually work pretty well, except for that
Yeah.
one scene where the guy's running towards the screen and the fire is all around him, but it just doesn't make sense, like where he's placed. I'm like, this doesn't seem right. The fire and the surrounding area don't make sense. But you know, early days, you have to kind of give it a little bit of a lower bar situation where you're like, they were still figuring out all these different types of effects and how to implement them at a certain budget level and have it work.
Like I said, like for now, for this era, this movie doesn't look great. But at the time, there's not a lot to compare it to besides that movie that you mentioned, Dragonheart.
Yeah,
That movie
you can compare it to like Star Wars Episode 1, and
Yeah, that
like,
has some similar kind of like
some big monsters in it, but
no
yeah.
real like there was no real like they didn't really make post-apocalyptic movies in this way yet. They didn't really make dragon movies. They didn't really make, I don't know. There was like a night in King Arthur's court or whatever, which
I don't think there was any
like kind of
dragons.
medieval. No, what about the one with where Martin goes back in time?
I forget what that one's called.
What about
A
the
night? No, sorry. Oh, Black Knight. No,
Black
no.
Knight. No, I think it was called Black Knight.
Yeah, with Martin Lawrence.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think I ever saw that movie though. I just remember the trailer very clearly for some reason.
I used to
and
love
the poster where he's wearing a jersey and like holding a sword.
I used to love those campy late 90s, early 2000s, like dumb comedies.
You guys got to watch The Final Girls. I watched that the other day. It's awesome.
I've seen that movie. It's good. He reads really fast. I like the costume design in this movie quite a bit, actually. I like that all the people dwelling in the castle, their clothes look like patched and like handmade, and it looks like they could have made them out of like tablecloths and curtains and stuff that they just stitched together. And even when the Americans show up, like all their clothes look like they're just old uniforms that have been repurposed. And you know, Van Zandt, his like pilot's jacket has the sleeves ripped off of it. It's like, okay, this is pretty cool aesthetically. Everything looks really good. The cinematography is quite good throughout the entire movie. It's compelling.
Why is his snub-nosed cigar not lit ever?
Because he quit smoking years ago, and he just carries around the stogie that he chews on it.
Did he say that? Is that true?
No, it's just an assumption I made.
That's a good assumption.
Maybe it's the only cigar he has left, and he's waiting to light it for a very special occasion.
I like that.
I found it annoying because at the time, like that was kind of like the character is a hard ass. He's got to have some sort of like weird affectation that he does, and I bet you that was a McConaughey thing. Like he probably brought that thing to set and was like, I'm gonna chew on these the whole goddamn movie. And I'm like, everything this guy does is like really homoerotic. Like his character overall, to me, I was just like, it's like he just wants to fuck Quinn the whole movie.
Was an aggressive American type character. Like I think that's apt.
I wrote down some lines that he says in this movie.
I want to fuck you, Quinn. I'm an American and I want to fuck you.
It's not far off. So after the tomato scene, they go back to the castle, and then shortly after, the Americans show up, and he gives off this menacing sort of quality, but he also gives off sort of like a caged animal or like somebody really holding back feeling. Yeah. Almost like a person that could like transform into a werewolf at any second. Like he's like in mid werewolf transformation all the time. I mean, like I wrote down all the weird, like the gayest stuff that happens in this movie with Van Zandt. There's one point where he says over the radio, he's like, Quinn, you got to ride to me. Bring it to me. 8 tons of horse flesh. And he says, 8 tons of horse flesh right on your head. Bring it right down my throat. He says, bring it right down my throat.
Okay, that's pretty homoerotic. I didn't.
And I was like, holy moly.
I didn't pick
this
up
is
on
getting
that.
me hot and bothered. And then like let's not forget when they're fist fighting and he takes off his shirt to show just how beautiful his body is. And then he just, as he's fighting, he's just growling like an animal the entire
those
fight.
grunts were pretty.
Like I assume this was all ADR, like after the fact, is just Matthew McConaughey in a sound booth just like growling into a microphone during the fight. So sexual. But
I'm horny, says Quinn.
No, Quinn was like, I'm scared of you. Feel like you're undressing me with your eyes and with your hands. Stop it.
That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good.
It is good. It was like a good choice to make him seem like he is completely asexual, but at any moment he could turn into like a very like super gay werewolf that will just bone Quinn at the drop of a hat.
Quinn like innocently is like, you know, likes Alex, and Van Zandt's like, I want to fuck you.
Just like in Jurassic Park, all of the dragons are female.
True. That's a good call.
But during the scene where the Americans show up, I did think that it was a cool addition that they were able to do like a show not tell thing with the stockpile of this castle. Like they keep talking about how they're running low on food. Primarily, they're always just drinking booze. And when the Americans show up, they go to their armory and they pass out weapons to everybody. And then the guy grabs an ammo box and turns it over, and there's only like 6 bullets that roll out. Yeah, and it's like,
you can't
these guys are
out
at everything.
Picking it up.
I mean, it's a way to visualize it to us.
Yeah.
The audience.
Before we get to the Americans showing up, there was one thing that I thought we should talk about for a sec, and it's they actually have theater in this universe, and they just reenact old movies for the kids, and then
they stole it as their own.
They do Star Wars, and one kid's like, "Did you make that up?" And he's like, "Yep,
of course I did." Yeah.
And it's the Luke or the "I am your father" scene from fucking A New Hope.
I also thought
Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back.
I was like, oh, Star Wars, Steve's favorite.
Yeah, it was cute. I was like, that's not where the movie ends. Like when I watched them, I'm like, why are they stopping there? The movie goes on for like 25 more minutes. But you know, I guess they left it at a cliffhanger. They'll pick it up next time. I was hoping one of the kids at the end would be like, we don't want to go to bed. We want to see Return of the Jedi now. It's kind of funny because in Return of the Jedi, there's like a scene where C-3PO is retelling all the adventures of Han Solo and Luke Skywalker to the Ewoks, and he's speaking in their teddy bear language, but he's doing all the sound effects. Like he's like, and he's doing all that, and it like reminded me sort of that, which I don't know, it's just kind of nice. But you know, at the end of the day, they butchered the lines. I was like, this isn't how it goes.
Did they do the Nelson Mandela effect line, or did they do the actual line from the movie? I meant to make a note of that.
That's not
no Mandela effect.
I've
been watching Star Wars since I was a kid, and there's no incorrect.
Misheard.
It's just people have been quoting it wrong for years. So
yeah,
no, but that's what I'm saying. Did he say the Nelson Mandela version or the regular version?
He said the one that everybody misquotes.
Oh, okay.
Whatever that means.
Here's my logic for that scene, though. They haven't seen the movie in 20 years, right? The world has been under ash for 20 years, right?
They haven't had any other movies.
They haven't had any movies. They haven't had television in 20 years. So they're probably misremembering the movie, and they're just
they could have found a copy of the novelization.
Do they have power in this universe though? Is that they had yeah, I guess they had lights.
Yeah, they had power. Who cares? we don't have to break down the logic of them misquoting Empire Strikes Back. Our show is.
It's a podcast. That's what we do. Do you think that
okay, fine, yeah. Let's keep talking about it for 10 more minutes.
Do you think the Hulk's dick was green?
Yeah, I think that
his muscles
if they really had to, they could hook up a TV to a generator and a VCR and watch Empire Strikes Back. It would probably just be rough to find a copy of it in a burnt world. So I'll let the misquotes slide on this one. Those bastards. They probably weren't even real Star Wars fans.
No.
like gatekeeping for people in a world burnt by dragons. Like, you guys don't even like Star Wars.
Also, the new Star Wars had just come out, so it was kind of like probably a tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, true. I think this actually came out just after Attack of the Clones.
Episode 1?
No, Attack of the Clones.
No, episode 1 came out in 1999. And Attack of the Clones was like 2002 or 2003.
I believe it was 2002, which would have been a few months before this movie. I bet you Attack of the Clones was probably still playing in theaters when this movie came out.
Men in Black 2 was in theaters. It went up against this movie as well. So Men in Black 2, even though not as good as the first one, was still a huge fucking success. It's another reason why this movie probably tanked.
There is a great moment in Men in Black 2 where
when they get flushed?
When they get flushed and then they end up in those little tubes, and then Jay says, like, man, Kay, back when you were an agent, you used to love getting flushed. Every Saturday night you'd be like, flush me, Jay, flush me. And then he's just like lying to him, and then he's like, listen, man, you gotta believe me. It's so funny.
I do like that scene too, actually. That's actually one of my favorites from that movie.
It's quite funny.
And I'd be like, nah.
And then I'd be like, nah, yeah. So the Americans show up. They have like a brief moment where Van Zandt reveals that he is a dragon slayer, or he calls it a dragon killer. I'm a dragon killer. And he's like, we call it a dragon slayer in London, England.
London.
Shows him a tooth, tells him that the dragons can't see very well during like twilight.
Basically, dusk or twilight.
Yeah, dusk or dawn. No, isn't twilight like the middle of the night?
No,
the moon is the brightest.
I thought twilight is when it's getting dark at 9 p.m. in the summer.
That's dusk.
That's dusk.
Yeah.
Twilight would be literally midnight.
Yeah, twilight I believe is like when the moon is at its brightest.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm not gonna look up twilight. Fuck it.
Hey, chat. Hey, there's 3 of you watching.
Probably what does twilight mean?
What does twilight mean?
So
are you a Twilight princess?
That story is kind of cool. I kind of like it, and like Matthew McConaughey does a really good job of making you visualize that moment, which is tough to do in movies unless your actor and your cinematography and your either lack of score or a very appropriate score will cause you to sort of evoke imagery in your mind. And I think that it did the job. And there's like very few moments in this movie that I want to be like, he killed it in this scene, because there isn't a lot of scenes that I give a shit about. But that part where he's just like, he came at us twice and missed the heart of us. They can see real well in the day, but they can see even better at night time.
The magic hour.
Magic hour. And then he gives him the tooth, which is pretty cool. And then they join forces, and then almost immediately a dragon shows up. And they have these moments later where Christian Bale is like, you're gonna lead him back here, and I'm like,
helicopter. They have helicopters.
Your friends left to go to the tomato fields and came back. They could have followed those people back. You guys showed up with tanks and helicopters. They could have followed them then. Like, what is your logic here that they're going to follow you? Like, it doesn't make any sense. The internal logic of the movie is completely broken.
Exactly.
At this point.
Christian Bale does look up at the helicopter, and I feel like it's a nod to the audience to be like, well, the dragons can fly, so how come, we probably shouldn't be flying helicopters around. It's like that scene in the recent season of The Boys where that flying dickhead keeps flying up out of the fucking camp.
Well, okay, so up into this moment in the movie, Christian Bale and everybody in this castle have never seen anything flying in the air for over 20 years. And they say this during the conversation that like no one flies anymore. That's their territory. And Matthew McConaughey's like, it's our territory. It's your territory. They're just renting it. And like, so when the helicopter comes over, because he doesn't believe him that they have the ability to fly. And then when they see the helicopter, I don't think that's a look of him being like, oh, it's like a look of him being like, holy shit, you guys were not lying. You have a helicopter. This is fucking nuts. And that's when everybody's like, well, I guess we got to listen to these guys. They clearly have figured out how to fly a helicopter without being murdered immediately. Which is another thing that made me be like, okay, cool. This is kind of cool. They're doing some world building and they're kind of expanding.
Yeah, they have those paratroopers that just jump out of the plane.
Yeah, that's kind of like the most annoying part of the whole movie, which is like, this guy's an 8-year vet, and then within like 2 seconds of him doing his job, like if in a good movie they would have shown this team take a dragon down successfully and then had them get really fucked up by like the bull or something, like later. The helicopter would have went into London, they would have had their whole team, and the whole team would have got wiped out, and then they would have, you got to like, you can't just tell us that these guys are aces at what they do and then have them die a second later.
Wrecked immediately.
Emotional investment.
Exactly, and like that's one of the reasons that this movie is so forgettable. And like I could completely forgot about the scene where they're like shooting crazy chain nets at a dragon's wings, which is like really cool, but it shakes them off immediately, and you're like, and then they all die. You're like, okay, well those guys, I didn't even get to know their names. But again, if they had like had those guys take the dragon down, kill it, and then have them sort of like celebrate with the community rather than go back and like chastise everybody for having some drinks after killing a dragon, it would have been it would have created camaraderie amongst the group. It would have solidified some things. You could have still had the tension between the main characters, and then you could have killed the diving team in the end scene of the movie, and it would have been cool. But again, Jason, I think you're right, they did probably blow their budget. Maybe this is what they wanted to do, and they're like, we can't do 2 dragon dives. Are you insane? Yeah, unfortunately it's to a detriment to the film, because like watching
it's funny
that scene
because
again,
there's so many pieces of crap that they put out and they blow the budget for, and the budget makes back like 25% of the budget for like a $200 million movie. You'll see a movie just flop on its face. This movie, clearly somebody had the foresight to be like, this isn't going to do well even if we spend all of the money, so we gotta just cut all the corners because the script isn't that strong is the problem here. And I think somebody actually was smart enough to be like, we're not going to make have you seen the budget for advertising? We're not going to make any of this money back because this thing is kind of a stinker. Yeah. And I think that more, they don't get me wrong, they still blew a ton of money. It still flopped and fell on its face. But I think that if they had more people that were smart and didn't just try to keep throwing money at problems with movies, we wouldn't get crazy blockbusters with crazy budgets flop so hard. Like Mario Brothers, for instance, was another great example of that, where they just kept like starting the movie over and throwing more money at it.
It's crazy because like, you think about it for like 5 minutes creatively, and I can like pitch you an idea to have that dragon dive scene that I just explained done for like a sliver of the amount they probably spent on what they did in the movie, which is like show it all from the perspective of the people on the ground, and have it cut back and forth to like just close-ups of them and their helmets, and then show all the shit of them taking the dragon down in like silhouette through the clouds, and then it just like hit the ground and like in a big puff of smoke, and then Van Zandt be there being like, surprise motherfucker, and like axe it in the neck or whatever, like just do anything to establish these characters, these like interesting looking hell divers or whatever the fuck they call them.
The bull men, I think they were called, or something.
Bullet men, maybe. That makes more sense to me than bull men. Yeah, Amica men. What is it called? Amica. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to like rag too much on it because like the movie didn't do well, and it's obvious that they never went back to do sequels or anything. But
no, they
did have a few different things going on though. Like, so for example, like the kid, right? They have.
Oh, that's the other thing. Way too many characters in this fucking movie. Way too many characters. Yeah.
They have Van Zandt, like he goes out or whatever. They come back. He tosses the kid the apple, and the kid's like, "Oh, who's this new guy on the scene?" And then shortly after that, they have Quinn talking to Alex. Alex like, "Oh, where's the kid? How'd you get the kid or whatever?" It's like, "Oh, I got him from the pound," and like that kid's overhears it, so he's got like that feeling of like. Like low, whatever the word is I'm looking for, right? Like this guy doesn't think highly of me or whatever. Then Van Zandt and Quinn get in a fight. Quinn wins, and then that just kind of enforces that much more into the kid. Like, oh, this guy seems like he knows what he's doing. This is the way to go, and sides with him. Wants to be the hell diver or whatever. And then at the end, Quinn ends up being the one killing the dragon. And like the kid has like that newfound respect for him or whatever. He's the new leader of the clan kind of thing or whatever.
Well, he lost faith in him. he lost faith in him for a minute. Excuse me. But he never actually went through with leaving, right? Like he came back. Like he realized like I gotta come back.
Right.
But yeah, I agree. But again, as I was saying just before you started that, there's too many characters. Like Gerard Butler's in this movie, and he's basically a confidant for Quinn. But then there's like 5 other characters that you see, and they have dialogue. They do stuff. Like the Birdman guy should have just been like a mute. Like he didn't have to have dialogue. You know, like he could have just been a guy looking through
characters and they would have lines and.
Yeah, like that Birdman guy doesn't have any impact on the story. He's just the guy. It's just a cool thing. Like I like the Birdman. I like that he has a hawk and he looks through a thing. But like I don't need him picking up a phone being like, "Oh my god, they're fucking jagging." Like okay, yeah, we get it, man. Like just having like
just send the bird,
ring a bell or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what his name was in the movie. I think it was AJ or something.
Which one?
Bashir, the guy from Star Trek. Yeah, AJ. He had so much dialogue, but he had no import whatsoever. Gerard Butler and him could have been the same fucking character. They could have taken all of that shit and just made him that one person. And then you don't have so much going on. And like it becomes confusing after a time, right? Like then you've got that dude with the kids. Like I like that is there and that's sort of a constant throughout. But again, he's also got like 4 kids and like some of them die and you don't even really, it doesn't impact you in any way. You're like, which one died? Did one of them die? Did one of the kids die? I don't know. And then the main characters have to be like, another one of his fucking kids died. I'm like, oh, okay. Thank you, movie. Thank you for telling me that. I wasn't sure. There should never be a moment in a movie where somebody dies and it's meant to be impactful and you're uncertain as the viewer who is watching like with attention that you don't realize if they died or not. Like that should never happen in a movie.
When he's like, is that the scene where he's like, a kid should, like, a father should never watch his kid die. It should be the other way around.
That was the early.
I didn't even realize his son died.
I wasn't.
That
line. I was like, what the fuck? Somebody died?
I think it was Eddie's kid.
I think it was the guy who got like bitten like during the tomato thing.
Yeah.
I think it was But like I didn't realize that was his son during that scene. I didn't realize that was the person that died until they're like, he got eaten. I'm like, okay, he's dead. And then when they got back, they're like, a father should never need to bury his son. I'm like, oh, that was his son. Like there were so many things that could have informed me that had happened before Christian Bale saying it. I guarantee you that was like an added line because they probably showed it to an audience and nobody registered that was his kid.
If this movie came out like now, exactly as it was, the CGI would be so much cheaper that the movie would probably be 20 minutes longer, be 2 hours long, and all of this nonsense that just gets jammed into like throwaway lines would be fleshed out, and there would be actual world building, and like the beginning scene, the opening scene would have a lot more gravity to the plot, and there would be lots of cool like skirmishes with smaller like where were all the baby dragons that they could
there is that
1v1
the thing is like I don't even think that would be better. I think if they did it more like Alien, the first Alien movie, where it's like
or like less, like even less.
It's almost like a Fallout situation where they've been hiding in this castle for years and they're finally coming out and being like, are there still dragons around? And then they're having to like explore, and then you're on less of like a let's bunker down and stay in this one location the entire time. You're exploring the waste and having to deal with dragon skirmishes.
I like that too. And I think we're all going to sort of land on the conclusion that this movie was just kind of a mess.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because the concept for it is like really cool. When if you were to describe it to somebody, they would probably be like, that sounds pretty cool. especially when you like look at it from a distance, you're like, oh, it actually looks kind of cool too. Like the cinematography is great. It's very moody. The music is actually pretty good. Like there's lots of good things. It's like I said, it's a puzzle where all these puzzle pieces have little pictures on them that look amazing, but then you try and put them together and it just doesn't freaking fit.
I rated this movie surprisingly high for how little I liked it.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we can kind of power through a few of these scenes. We've kind of been talking about them not really in order, but that's the thing. This movie is kind of a little bit confusing when you're trying to think back on it.
I wanted
so many little micro scenes happen, but they're like, when you try and put them in order, you're like, I can't really remember what order these things happen in.
Since we're kind of in between here, I wanted to bring up that this wasn't the movie that sent Bowman packing back to.
Yeah, it was Elektra, wasn't it?
Yeah, they gave him one more shot, and then they gave him Elektra. Also, I haven't even. I think it's the only superhero movie I haven't seen.
I mean, in his defense, Elektra, not the most compelling of characters to begin with,
especially where it's a spin-off / sequel to Daredevil, which also kind of blew. But interestingly enough about this guy, he's worked on a fuck ton of TV.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing is like, if you make a movie that is even like has a modicum of a success, like you're not going to be booted from the industry. You won't be given a big old blockbuster again, you know?
No, you'll be given an
They're not going to be
movie.
Inviting you to direct Thor.
Well,
5,
it's
Guardians
funny you should
3.
say that, because it's funny.
What do you consider?
No, but those are the kind of directors that they make do the Marvel movies, and then we get bangers because they're given great stuff to work with.
Well, not anymore. That's how they kind of like they would grab the indie guys, put them in, and they would do well. But now it seems like Kevin Feige's like new thing is like, let's get prestige directors who have great success. And
true,
have
but
Taika
Waititi's still kind of like a middle of the road sort of indie movie director.
I know. I'm referring more to Sam Raimi and like I think there's like anyway.
He got his start as an indie director though, and he was still pretty low in the totem pole when he did Spider-Man. So I think
Sam Raimi was?
Yeah.
No, he was not.
Get the fuck out of here. 2001, bro.
He was making dramas all the way through the 90s. Okay. He made Darkman.
Yeah, Prestige.
Didn't know that was him, but I like that
Prestige.
movie.
Anyway,
also a comic book movie.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about like he made Darkman, and then he made a bunch of like he was trying to like, I want to be a grown-up director now through the 90s, and then he's like, oh, I really want to do Spider-Man.
And
they're like, give him Spider-Man. He's good. He's gonna be good. I'm gonna
do 2.5 Spider-Man movies.
The third one is not his fault.
We'll let my brother write the third one.
No. The third one was studio interference.
Also, yeah. If there was no Venom in Spider-Man 3, I think it might have been a decent movie, even though I like Venom. But that
Sam Raimi has kind of like not been officially on record saying that he killed Venom, like unequivocally. Like there's no question that Venom is dead at the end of that movie, because he was like, I don't want to put him in Spider-Man 4, because Sam Raimi still believed he was going to make a fourth Spider-Man after. So they
spend 3 movies building Doc Connors, and then they still do Doc Connors for the Amazing Spider-Man and just change the actor. Like that's a fuck you to so many things.
Well, also in the version of 4 that he had written, he still wasn't going to do Connors. He just wanted Connors to always be there as like a thing that people would be like, is this guy ever going to be in these movies?
He's ever going to listen out.
He was going to do the Vulture for Spider-Man 4.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Also, no movie title shout out for this movie.
No, we didn't have Christian Bale go,
we better defeat this dragon or else it's gonna be a real rain of fire.
It's raining out. It's rain of fire out. Perfect.
It wouldn't have counted though, because they would have been saying it like it was a literal rain from the sky.
We've gone looser before. We've used writing on the wall as the shout out. We've used words that weren't in the title. It's a raining fire. Hallelujah.
Fell into a burning rain of fire.
Yeah, what was that song in this movie?
It's surprised that they didn't toss that one in as the end credits theme or whatever.
I started the first. Speaking of like good music in movies where it doesn't really fit, I started Peaky Blinders today.
Oh, is that any good?
It's fine. Like it's cool. Like it's like Cillian Murphy's walking around being like, "Fuck you, you fucking cunt," basically. But and it's real slick looking. But the music is they're doing that thing where it's music from the wrong era, which is cool, but it's gonna get old. I think it's good. Like that scene's really cool, but you know what would make it cooler? AC/DC.
Oh.
or it's network TV, so it's like you know, like Shameless or I just finished Animal Kingdom, where they use like songs that aren't famous songs. They are just like in the same genre as famous songs. So yeah.
Rain
Also,
of
can
Fire.
we give a shout out to the flask of water?
The flask of water?
Yeah.
This is water.
Wait, what? I don't remember that.
Later.
Yeah, Van Zandt gives Quinn a flask. He
Hey.
takes a chug. It's like, oh, this is water.
Oh, I don't remember that part.
It's right when they're about to fucking split three ways and just
Fight the
ruin
dragon,
everything. Yeah.
All right.
It gave me a nice little chuckle.
Yeah, so I guess we can kind of power through the last little kind of bullet points. They get in their fight. The Van Zandt leaves with a couple of he leaves with all of his people and a couple of people from the castle.
He tries to dress it up nicely by letting them volunteer.
Yeah.
And then not enough people volunteer. Like, all right, time for the draft segment of this or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, he tries to convince Quinn, and then Quinn catches them fucking doing a big speech, and then they fist fight each other. And, and
this is where he turns into like half a werewolf and starts growling and just bleeding.
I'll be back in
everywhere.
2 seconds. Keep going.
I will.
And yeah, then they take off with people anyway. And you know, we have a couple of more, like there's a lot of these like back and forth conversations throughout the movie that it's like the whole movie is two people talking to each other and then like a big blowout actiony thing and then back to two people talking to each other.
I was going to mention that there's a version of this movie that probably existed at some point when they didn't have the budget for CGI, or they could have made this movie with basically never showing dragons if the dialogue wasn't so nonsense. Like this could have been a really cool character study about like what it's like to live in this universe now, where it's mostly just person versus person like drama or conflict, and maybe a big set piece at the end with a dragon or something, or little dragons. That's what was missing from this movie for me. Fist fighting a little dragon. Anyway,
baby dragon.
Yeah. Fist fighting a baby dragon or something.
Yeah, that could have been a cool moment where a bunch of eggs are hatching and Van Zandt is having to like fight them with his axe. Takes a bite out of one, starts fucking one.
looking Quinn right in the eyeball, being like, this is if we directed it. If the Hey Did You See This One version came out, release the Hey Did You See This One cut of Rain of Fire. But yeah, it could have been a good character study of what it's like to live in this universe. Instead,
yeah, and I mean,
it was a big, ugly, gross CGI mess.
It's also like every time they go do shit, the dragons follow them back, and then Quinn is always like, "They're gonna follow you back," and they always do. And then you know they go off. Their whole caravan gets burned except for somehow like 3 people. Like, okay, Van Zandt like hid underneath a tank. The helicopter was off flying around somewhere else. Like, okay, what?
That part's worth noting because up to that point, Van Zandt's still like, I killed one, I can kill them all. Magic hour, baby.
Well, I think he's killed a bunch of them. I think that's his
he's killed the one, but he thinks he's invincible. But they go and have that moment where the dragon comes, wrecks their whole convoy, and they return with like 3 people, and then he's finally like, I believe you now. And Quinn's like, you should have just listened to me.
I'm sorry.
In the first place, you'd have like 100 people, because later in the movie when they go fight the final battle, he's like, I should have 200 people. I should have an army of 200 people with me. But
yeah, but I think if they did have an army of 200 people, they would have not been nearly as successful, they probably wouldn't have got all the way into what they got into.
They would
because
have
were
lost
able to, like, stealth.
197 of the people.
Yeah, exactly.
198 if you include Van Zandt.
But when they do get to the city finally, and they are kind of like trekking around through the tunnels and stuff, I got really mad that they were being so loud. Like, they're whispering at points when the dragons are like a million miles away, and then when they're in the city, they're like, he's like, "This is the entrance to the tunnel. We gotta go down here." And I'm like, why is he yelling now? He's yelling so loud. But all of that looked really cool, and I was like, oh man, imagine the whole movie was stuff like this, where they're like think about Alien, where they're moving around environments, and that it's scary and it's got tension.
I kept thinking of Children of Men.
Yeah, I guess because it's a destroyed city, but like Children of Men also is like, there's so much going on in that scene, and it's that whole scene at the end where they're going through the destroyed city is one like 22-minute shot. I'm sure there's some disguised cuts, but
no, but that was the
one
big
enormous shot.
That was the big thing about that movie. It had that
and
giant continuous
that's what
shot.
makes that scene special in that movie.
It's also leaps and bounds better than this movie.
Yes. And like, the end of this movie, it gets moody, and there's cool angles, and they're doing shit with the camera, and I'm like, oh, this has now become visually interesting, even though like all they're doing is going to go fight a dragon. That's also interesting, I guess. But like, they start to introduce weird new tech. He's like, you got to use a crossbow, and you got to shoot him with this and right in his goddamn mouth. And you're like, okay, so like they're doing
so
stuff
it's Jurassic
now.
Park, it's Tremors now.
Yeah, but they waited until the very end of the movie to introduce any of this stuff. And I'm like, why wasn't the whole movie this? Like, it's just them sitting in a castle the whole time, arguing, yelling at each other, grunting, punching, and getting drunk. And it's like, what is the movie? The movie's boring. This is
I've said it
boring
before,
fucking
and I'll
movie,
say it
man.
again. We should make a movie.
Okay, just get somebody to give us millions and millions of dollars.
Well,
we don't even need millions of dollars.
We need a script. Kaylin, draft up a quick script for us, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Not right now.
And then you guys revise it, make it better. And then we fucking film. We do some guerrilla filming. Do you know how well I could sneak into different areas?
No, I don't. And
it sounds like you just want to sneak into some different areas.
Kaylin, I can tell you right now, I have made movies, short films before, and it is a lot of work. It's not as simple as pointing a camera at stuff.
I'm not saying it's not, but if it's something that you want to do, you will at least.
I'm talking like it takes like 45 minutes to set up a single shot.
Don't get me wrong, I've done some background work. I've seen what goes on behind the scenes to get shit ready, and it blows my mind how much work is involved for like a few seconds to
for
a
camera
minute.
going like this.
Exactly, and they have to do it over and over and over. But I do get where Caitlin's coming from. We if we all lived in the same city, I'm sure we could make a goofy movie.
We could even make a. Is that Madison? Is Madison doing something?
I'll play the mayor in every movie.
I'm Madison.
The mayor.
They're saying hello to you.
Hello.
But we're in the middle of something here.
Tip my hat off to you.
I love you.
I do think that this movie has some really good moments, but I don't know, man. There's
it's convoluted.
So
it's very convoluted.
The thing is, it's not even that convoluted though. It's like so simple, and
good job.
It's just like the sum of the parts is not. It doesn't build anything.
Your puzzle analogy was really good. Like you have pieces that are cool, but then when you try to put them together, they don't fit together. I think that was the perfect analogy for.
I'll be back.
What happened with this?
Yeah, there's like a lot of like hanging threads, like things that they introduce that don't really go anywhere, but you also don't even care. Like it's like they introduce stuff that doesn't go anywhere, but you also as an audience, you don't give a shit, and that's probably why they don't go anywhere with it. But it's like, why did you even introduce that to begin with?
Exactly.
Like the kid doesn't even really show up at the end. You know, like
Well, he's at the
like,
very end saying, "Hey, someone's calling."
yeah, but like they had set up this. What would have been crazy is if that kid is the one that fucking killed the jet dragon and Quinn died and he had to be the new fucking leader. Like that would have been a better
That's a
ending.
good rewrite. I like that.
Like, why? Imagine they got to a point and like his crossbow fucked up just like Van Zan's did, and then he gets like tossed and he's dying and he's like, ugh, and then a hand reaches into his bag and it reveals that it's fucking Jared. Like you don't even see him the whole time and he just followed them there. And then he shoots the dragon, blows it up, and then he has a moment where Quinn dies, and Quinn's like, "You gotta take care of all them little
and then
back there at the castle."
And then as he's dying, the dragon bursts open, and a bunch of mini dragons come out, and they start fist fighting them.
Jeez, my ending was a sweet ending. Yours is now a dumb ending.
No, but then Quinn's still alive, and then then
Quinn bursts, and there's even smaller dragons inside of him.
And then now Jared's fist fighting mini Quinn dragons. I just really wanted to see somebody fist fight. I want to watch a dragon.
I mean, the point
movie.
that I'm trying to make, I know you weren't there for a second, Jason. I'm trying to say that they introduce these threads that don't go anywhere and they're not really important.
I was just being a goof.
I know you were. I know. I'm just trying to say that like that kind of stuff is annoying to me. And I didn't really give a shit about Jared's character because he's not really a character. He doesn't even really have any lines until he's leaving. And then Quinn is like,
"Where the fuck are you going without saying goodbye to me?" Mouth.
And he's like,
"Maybe he's right. Van Zam is a sick ass baby with a bald head and some sick abs."
Hey, do you guys think I should shave my head and keep my beard?
Kaylin, stop talking about shaving your fucking head. Jesus Christ. It's like the third time you brought it up.
Do it or don't.
But
listen, you already said you don't want to because it took you a long time to grow it to the length that it is. So don't do it. If you're going to regret it, then don't do it.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Shave your butthole.
Butthole! What? Okay, so...
I'm not trying to get ready for butt sex.
I mean, a lot of people don't shave their butt before butt sex. That's not how that works. I can't have butt sex tonight. I didn't shave my butt.
The dragon does one pass and fucks it up, then goes right to the castle. I think we're past that.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're kind of at the end now, but like, it's true. The dragon, it makes me feel like the dragons must have some sort of like extra sensory ability to like see stink in the air or something, or like smell gasoline trails or something. Like
they do show how the dragon's vision is impaired during the magic hour at that one point where you see through the dragon's eyes, and they're fighting the dragon and it looks a little bit distorted compared to earlier in the movie where you see through the dragon's eyes and it's all like crystal clear. So at least we did get a little bit of that. I that's another thing that wouldn't be that hard to do that they could have done more of. Yeah. And then you're showing the dragon without showing the dragon, which is something they didn't even bother trying to do.
Yeah, and it's like, they have this when Quinn is like,
two chemicals secreted from different glands in the mouth that could combine together to make a big old fireball.
Like, and he's like, that was one of our scientist theories before we got fucking burned alive or whatever. And it's like, how did that guy get burned alive? I'm more interested about this scientist guy that's dead.
We don't have to scientist anymore.
Why do you got a bird man, a radio man, and then fucking Gerard Butler being like, here you go, mate, drink up.
Yeah. The trick is to
have a scientist.
Really fast, so
where's the fucking scientist?
It only burns your stomach, not your throat. Which I live by that motto.
Okay, so if this was the movie Reign of Fire, you would be Gerard Butler, I would be the Birdman, and Jason would be the guy who's trying to save his kids or whatever. We'd all be kind of like shitty characters who die.
The side, yeah.
I'd be the tomato. I'd be the tomato garden.
Eddie.
You get burned alive in the first scene.
Eddie, wake up!
Tomatoes. Oh, stop! No, I just got that fucking song out of my head.
No, you didn't, because you're gonna go on TikTok like at some point in the next 4 hours, and you're gonna hear 16
I've started every
different
time
versions
I
of it.
hear the song. I've started putting those videos to not interested. Don't send me any of that shit again.
But it's the main meme it's the main meme right now.
It's
Are
the
they Ralph
main
for the
meme.
internet?
So people are taking Chrissy, wake up. I don't like this from Stranger Things 4.
Right.
They're taking that and they're putting it into other songs by like vocoding it and then making it like
Gotcha.
It's really annoying.
it's hilarious. I think it's funny because I
I've
like
asked
repetitive.
Jason
right.
to stop sending me them, but he won't. He keeps
I
sending
like
them to me.
I like repetitive memes. Oh, is that what that said? I didn't even read it. I saw words and I was like, that's not memes.
Good to know that you're not reading my messages. Just scrolling by them, waiting for more dogs like talking telepathically.
I want the content that I look at your page, that I look at your chat for, and it's VR.
VR.
The good VR.
He's got that maritime.
You know what though? I will say one of the most
Yeah, well, you got the maritime O's, so don't even give me that.
one of the best shots in the movie is the dragon on top of the tower, just like blowing fire down into the fire. It's really cool looking.
Yeah,
It's like a cool like novel cover, some
the second
illustration inside of
the second third
fantasy
of
book.
the budget.
The long shot.
Yeah, it's a very far away shot of the castle, and the dragon kind
Yeah.
of climbs up on the castle and just blows fire down
Yeah.
through the roof, and it comes out all the windows and stuff. It looks really
And then when they show
cool.
inside the castle, it's just like raining inside. I assume it fucked
Yeah.
up the water system.
Rain of fire.
I guarantee you, like they took the the conceptual art team. Someone drew that, and they took it to like the pitch meetings, and people were like, "Oh shit, that's got to be in the movie." And they're like, "Yeah, that's gonna be the money shot, baby." And then they spent so much money on that one shot. They made that shot before they made anything else in the entire movie.
Hey, we said it was going to be the money shot.
Yep.
Like, what is that? The climax of this movie, or is Matthew
The
McConaughey
climax
jumping
is
off
when
of the
when
shit?
Van Zandt jumps off the tower
Okay,
like a fool.
like
He
an
is
intelligent
not an
genius.
airborne creature.
I
He
mean,
is.
he
wide
never
open.
said he was a smart man. There's nothing smart about him.
No, I know. It actually is very true to his character.
He's like
Which-
almost completely reactionary in every way. Like he's not
Yeah.
a smart guy.
Yeah, he's trying to fuck Quinn the whole time.
Yeah, he growls his way through conversations, and then he walks away with a giant
And he
erection.
leads. He's got his quote. I lead, you follow.
Surprisingly enough,
Wow, what a great quote.
surprisingly enough, Matthew McConaughey's performance in this movie is surprisingly good for his
Yeah,
character.
I like it too. I will say that there are moments though where like, because he's supposed to be giving off this like he's flexing because he's like just always like on like the brink of snapping and murdering somebody next to him. Like even when he hugs Alex at one point, it's like the most rigid hug ever. He's like, "We're gonna give him a good send off, Alex, in the morning," and he like pats her back like aggressively. But like there's a moment where he's chasing after one of the trucks and jumps on, and he's like never graceful when he's doing anything. He's always sort of like rigid and like, and he like jumps on, and he's like, it's like he's flexing while in midair. And then like there's a part later where he's at the pyre where they I guess burned stuff. Like it's the graveyard where there's like a giant pyre burning for some reason. I don't know why it's burning. And he's walking down the steps and he's like doing his flex thing, and it looks like he's trying to be tough walking down the stairs, but he's not. He should be either going faster or slower than what he's going. He's going
Yeah.
at like a very weird pace.
I call
and
them
he keeps looking at the stairs like
I call them Matthew McConaughey choices. And another one is where he jumps down off the tank and he does it so daintily. And I'm like, that's not the take that they should have used for that. Because he
But
jumps
yeah, when
down
he's,
and he
like,
goes
in
like that.
when he's in that fight, when he's in the fist fight where he takes his shirt off, like every punch is like a super wind up. Like,
Extended, yeah.
like it's like a Marvel splash page every time he takes a fucking swing backwards. It's like his fist is going all the way down to his like the inside of his knee. And which I love though, because it's very cinematic looking. Like no one would ever punch like that in real life, but it looks pretty cool. What else? Oh, the stogie in the mouth, like the first like warning of dragons, he does not remove that fucking stogie from his mouth the whole time. He's just yelling like, "Everybody get in the car!"
That's got to be pretty hard.
Yeah, it's
I
also
tried-
pretty stupid. The whole time I'm like, take that out of your mouth. It'd be so much easier to yell orders without a half chewed up cigar in your mouth. I don't know, man. It must have been a choice by him, but like, or maybe he saw the concept art and like every time it was his character, he just had like a fucking cigar in his mouth. And they're like, this
Like,
guy
I'm gonna keep
always has a cigar in his mouth.
I'm gonna keep.
Maybe it was a stick.
Well, that's also like a tropey thing too, right? Like the guy in Aliens, the sergeant in Aliens, I cannot remember his name, but he's always like, all right, everybody, it's time for us to take down these motherfucking aliens. And he's always got like a cigar that he puts in his mouth. Like he's doing like a half Keith David impression kind of. And Halo, the character is basically based off of that character.
What,
always has a cigar in his mouth at all times in like every cutscene. You're just like, all right, everyone.
And he's an action dickhead until the later movies where they kind of tame him down a little bit.
Who?
The cigar guy.
Oh, in
you mean
Halo?
the trope?
Yeah.
In Halo or?
In Halo, yes.
Oh, right. He's in the first one. He's just in cutscenes. He's just like a funny, like he's just there to be like, haha, it's the guy with the cigar, and he shows up later at one point in the game. But yeah, he's like a weird through character that everybody loved so much that they're like, we got to give him like a real fleshed out story. And like finally, he started taking the cigar out of his mouth like to talk. That was pretty good. Yeah, I don't know.
That's
I guess
pretty much it. They fucking get to town. They fight the dragon. It's barely an inconvenience. They kill that dragon
It
so
was pretty
easily.
quick, though. It was really like kind of like anticlimactic, kind of like there was one mishap, and then he did the other shot, and then he won or whatever.
Yeah. I guess it's like the humans who all nuked the world didn't realize there was only one male, and like it took them this long to figure out there was one male. I don't know, like again, the internal logic of the movie doesn't really make any fucking sense. I feel like all the world's scientists would be like, all of these are female dragons. Like all the ones we've killed are female. There must be one male somewhere. Where did the first one appear? Oh, London? Let's nuke that.
Earlier in the movie, Quinn's the one that realizes that or says it to Matthew McConaughey. He's like, I didn't stop to look at the plumbing on that dragon. And it's like, you can't tell. It's got a fucking...
Reverse.
Oh, it is reverse.
I mean, dragons probably have big...
No, they probably have cloacas because they're reptiles.
What are those? Are those the screw ones?
Nope.
Screw one?
Nope, that's just an opening where they do everything from.
Yeah, they imply that it's kind of like fish, where the females like lay eggs all over the place, and then the male passes over and just inseminates them all with like a mist of cum, mist,
Mr. Fertilizer.
It's like a trout.
Oh man, they should make a new Stephen King adaptation called The Cum Mist.
No, they shouldn't.
Jesus.
They should
why
make
should
that.
they do that? You said should, so why exactly?
What's in that cum mist?
Yeah.
There's something in the cum mist.
It's full of monsters.
Well,
okay, so Matthew McConaughey jumps off a tower, gets eaten immediately. I kind of wish he got like one swipe on it or something.
I thought
if the axe was like stuck in its head for the rest of the fight, like it just had his.
If it didn't,
that'd be kind of cool.
It chomped and it didn't show his body again because they had no budget left. But what I thought was going to happen was the thing was going to crash, and then he was going to like blast out the side of it or something because he didn't get like.
He's not Drax.
Like in Hercules.
He's a human man.
Why not? That would have been. Who cares? There's dragons in this world. It's a fucking movie.
Exactly. Do what you want.
Exactly. Do what you want.
I
think at that point, I would have been like, "Good Lord, what the fuck?"
Okay, fair enough. I do kind of wish that my headcanon now is that he did some damage. He shot him with the thing, then he jumped in his mouth and got like a good hit. And then the dragon went down. And
well, he did shoot, and the reason the fire went off before it got inside, so it blew up in front of his face rather than inside.
It looked like it did a little bit of damage to the dragon.
I think that's why he jumped, because he knew like, if I jump off of this tower, I'm gonna either break my legs and survive and be horribly injured and just die anyway, or I can jump at this thing and maybe like take one of its eyes out or something. And I that's logically in my brain, like he's like, there's no situation in which I get out of this without dying or being horribly injured, so I'm going to try and do as much damage as I can.
I don't even think he's thinking about that. I think he's solely thinking of, just on the offensive. You know what I mean? Like he's just straight offensive.
Yeah, sure.
With his tactic.
That also makes sense. I think, like if you're at the top of the tower that high, like what are his other options? Really?
What else can you do?
Yeah. Like, so, but again, the axe flying off, I think they just was like visually is like, it'll be cool. But I'm like, oh, imagine he just like got it in its head, and like when it's coming at Quinn, it just has the axe like stuck out of the side.
Or there's a shot where he's like got the axe and he's hanging off, like flailing. I think that would be pretty cool.
Really want it to be a Marvel movie, don't you?
I've been watching a lot of Marvel movies. What can I say? Watch Multiverse. And then he's like, yeah,
yelling.
And then he just starts cracking wise. It's written by the Russos for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, not a crazy cool way to die, but like at the same time, like very on point with this psychotic character. Like his whole thing is like, I'm here to kill dragons, and that's what I'm gonna do.
I'm here to kill dragons and fuck dragons. That's it.
And I'm all out of dragons.
So you're sure to kill and fuck?
Yeah. And then they blow up the bull.
And then the movie
Quinn and Alex survive. Yeah. And then they go back, and somehow they're like, now the world's better again. We can finally do our laundry outside.
And maybe France can send them a bottle of wine.
And France will
aren't there still female dragons all over the place?
Exactly what I was like. Aren't there like thousands or millions of dragons left or something? Like,
it's still gonna be a minute.
Again, like the logic doesn't make sense. They're like, it's a different world now that there's only 1 million dragons instead of 1,000,001. But I guess like they establish early on that like the dragons are scared of like they're dead. So if that one is dead, maybe all the females are like running away and being like, oh shit.
Okay, but check this out. The dragons do live for a very long time. Even the normal dragons, I'm pretty sure. So
yeah,
is there just
even like one dragon can take out like 100 people easily?
Why don't they just eat the dragons? If they're scarce for food, why don't they just eat the dragons?
I wouldn't eat dragon. Are you kidding me?
That meat is probably delicious and huge
and mystical.
Well, they say it smells horrible, which I'm like, maybe it's toxic.
It's probably like liver, you know what I mean? Like it's good for you, but you don't like.
No, here, think about this. You can't eat certain kinds of snake because of the venom that runs through it, right? So,
but what if you burn it? What if you like boil it out?
No, it's got. I think they have gasoline.
Are you talking about cooking? What if you cook it? I think that's what you meant to say.
You burn it.
Take us home, Steve. Take us home.
Oh no, hold on. I have one more idea that's really stupid. What if the surviving humans chase all of the female dinosaurs to an island called Isa Nebula or something in the Costa Rican islands, and then what they do is they put up a giant fence and they invite people to come to the park, and nothing terrible ever happens. They could call it Dragon Park.
Dragon Park. Spelled with a J.
Well, what if there's a tropical storm and it shuts the fence down, and then all the dragons get back out of the fences, and then they get on a ship and go to the USA?
All right, you're right. This idea was stupid. What if they took him to an island called Skull Island and got all the dragons to fight a giant?
You trying to tell me this movie is a prequel to Jurassic Park? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, it happens at the same time.
No, this is a prequel. It happened in the 80s. And then they repopulated the Earth. Everything went back to normal. And then John Hammond was like, welcome to Dragon Park.
Okay, but who does
David Attenborough?
Who does Kermit play?
Kermit plays all the characters in this movie. He does a classic Encino Man.
Brendan Fraser didn't play all the characters.
No, I know, but it was a callback. I was going for a particular kind of joke there that just fell on its face, much like this movie did. Steve, take us home.
Movie bad. Fire bad.
Bad. Classic Encino Man.
Well, I guess we'll go right into the final thoughts, which I think we're all going to kind of fall into the same camp when it comes to our opinion. But Jason, I believe I started with you, so let's go.
This movie starts pretty strong. I was very invested until the second act was just them just talking to each other. I feel like this by the time you get to the second act, movies obviously aren't always filmed sequentially, but this movie seems like it was filmed sequentially, and they did a whole bunch of big shit at the beginning, and then in the middle they're like, well, yeah, you don't have any money, but they're just gonna talk to each other in a castle for an hour. And then they were like, okay, here's the rest of the money at the end of the movie. So once it gets dull, it gets hard to watch. Like I was bored. And if you're like if you're nodding off watching a movie, not a great look. That said, I think if the movie was a bit longer, I know I hate long movies personally. They could have fleshed out things, they could have fleshed out things that didn't get fleshed out, and they were kind of glossed over. Explain, if you're gonna have a cast this big, explain some of these characters and who they are and what they mean to the plot, right? So they could have also fleshed out the like parallels to medieval times as well. They could have had, maybe they joust for fun inexplicably.
The main character's name is Arthur.
Yeah. Maybe more dragon stuff, like tiny dragons that they fist fight, that they keep chains around. When he pulls the egg out of the dragon, my instinct was he's going to take this home and raise it as his own.
What about breakfast?
Fertilized?
Well, he's going to fertilize himself, and that's the missing ingredient.
He's like,
Here comes that mommy.
Would you eat a dragon egg for breakfast?
Yeah, scrambled dragon eggs.
Yikes! I don't know. Let's
Put a
see.
little salt and pepper on it.
It was
maybe
all,
some hot sauce.
I mentioned this early in the movie. It was kind of more of it felt more like a person-to-person conflict interaction movie. But that's not what the movie was going for. I think I was just grasping on to that sort of being the dynamic of this movie, because it was so devoid of like dragon stuff. For a dragon movie, not a lot of dragon stuff in it. Right, it wasn't done particularly well. I did actually write out my my final thought this time. The performances from McConaughey and Bale were the highlights of this movie. Christian Bale is amazing, even if he was clearly phoning it in. And McConaughey was the opposite of that. He was amazing, even though he was like, this is gonna be my fucking check for the year. That's all I gotta do this year, boys. I'm gonna act like a maniac and get paid $10 million. Tug your nuts.
Pull up your bootstraps.
And it has some cool concepts, is that goes to what Steve was saying about how there's a bunch of puzzle pieces sort of just didn't make a full puzzle. I'm gonna give this movie,
butchered that analogy. Jesus Christ.
Well, I'll let you do it properly.
Okay.
In yours. I didn't write that down. I was just kind of paraphrasing what you said.
I was just joking.
I'm gonna give it a generous 3.1 out of 5, and I'll tell you why. This movie, I'm giving it a 2002 3.1 out of 5.
Okay.
If I would have seen this movie in 2002, I would be like, we're doing Reign of Fire? Holy shit. And then I would be horribly disappointed by it. Still. The same outcome. But I imagine I would have loved this movie had I had seen it back then. And for the era, the CGI is fucking amazing, some of it. And the concept of like a futuristic, not futuristic, but post-apocalyptic, modern medieval hybrid, also fantastic idea, some of it. And it holds up. Those elements hold up. It's just this fucking storytelling in this movie is almost as bad as a shitty 80s action movie. But that said, I do rate it as a movie pretty high, because I think it's worth watching it to remember that, like, watch this and watching just any other 2002 action movie that's heavy on the CGI, because you'll see the difference. The difference is night and day. There's a lot of bad CGI that came out around that time. So, it does fall pretty short today, and 3.1 is very generous, but that's what I rated it when I finished it, and those are my reasons. And yeah, I would say watch this movie just to watch it. It's fucking thrown on in the background on a Saturday night, watch it with friends. It's one of those kind of movies.
All right.
And you got puzzle pieces, and then you have one puzzle piece in a second, and then you don't put the puzzle pieces together, so it doesn't make a whole puzzle.
It's like those two holes.
What?
Or what would you call it?
Do you mean like
Not
a peg in a hole, and it's like a square peg trying to go through a circle hole? Is that what you mean?
So on a puzzle piece, there's like a peg side, and then what's the opening side called?
Female?
No. Top and bottom.
Oh yeah, or can we still use male and female for like?
I think top and
screws?
bottom is better.
Yeah,
I think top and bottom is better than male female because
But top and bottom can be interchangeable as far as which one's going into what.
No, top
Nope.
it takes it.
I don't think that you know what top and bottom mean, Kaylin.
Bottom takes it, top gives it, pretty much universally.
No.
Kaylin, when you say male to female, Kaylin, when you think male to female in terms of outlets, male is the one that goes into the wall.
Yeah, but top and bottom can be both. Both can be top and bottom for that.
No.
Bottom
means
they can.
Bottom means take.
Missionary, you're on top.
Kaylin, it's not about the orientation of who's on
yeah.
top and who's on bottom, literally.
But you just used the words tops and bottom.
Yeah, but
that's
you're
to
not
differentiate between the two.
You're being
literal. I'm being literal.
You're being literal. It's not literal. It
The
doesn't
top,
mean who's on top and who's on bottom. It
the
means
bottom takes it.
the two different things have different meanings in terms
No,
of the
that's
act.
a power bottom.
Yeah. That's the top. A power bottom is technically always on top. Okay, so Kaylin, you're up next for your final thoughts.
My final thoughts. So as you both said, there's pieces to this.
Tops and bottoms, if you will.
I want to
Yes,
I want to clip
tops
the
and bottoms.
fucking tops and bottoms fucking part of the show. That was good.
Yeah. On the first viewing of this for this episode, I was not invested in anyone. Like there was just so much going on, as we've already mentioned, and it didn't fit the norm of what like certain beat breaks or whatever, like emotional beats or whatever, that like a typical movie kind of cookie cutter outlet has. On the repeated viewing, so I watched it again a second time last week, in the hopes or in the thought that we were going to be doing it. Like I did the first viewing on the weekend, then the second viewing in the week, and then I did a third viewing today. And on repeated viewings, I did find myself enjoying what they were trying to do and note, like kind of noticing and picking up on what they were trying to do and kind of recognizing why on a first viewing, because on a first viewing you're taking in everything and it doesn't like have the feng shui that should go with it. And you definitely made some good editor revisions or whatever, Steve, with some of your suggestions there as to how to like achieve those emotional.
Yeah, but it's easy to do when hindsight's involved. Yeah.
Hindsight's 2020. This movie takes place in 2020.
Okay, thank you.
But so on that note, I agree with you, Jason. It's worth a watch. I would say give it a watch just for what it is. And I will add that it does get a little bit better with repeat viewings, depending on like what what an individual looks for when they're watching a movie. All that being said, I give this movie a fire-breathing dragon helping me prepare my s'mores. That's what I give it.
Seems like your s'mores would get ruined.
Or if it was a tiny dragon.
The idea's there, but then the execution.
No, yeah, right. You're like, maybe I can get this dragon to help me do my s'mores. And you're like, dragon, you fucked my s'mores up. Jeez. Very good.
And back to you.
All right. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really simple. You guys kind of covered most of the ground. I think this movie has a lot of cool ideas, and I think this would probably work way better as like an RPG video game or something than it does as a movie.
I didn't say anything about video games this time. I wanted to, but
Listen, you're
where's
allowed
the
to
Final
talk about
Fantasy
video
section,
games as a
okay?
concept. I just don't want you to talk about fucking Final
it
Fantasy
was
for
going to be Final
25
Fantasy.
minutes.
It was going to be like basically if there was magic in this, it would be a Final Fantasy. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
All I'm saying is that, like, you know, I could imagine that castle being full of little quests and side quests for all of the characters, because there's so many fucking characters in this movie that you don't give a shit about. But if it was a video game, you'd be going around and Van Zandt would be like, listen, I need you to gather up as many dragon teeth as you can. And then you would be able to fight little baby dragons when you go to do that, Jason. It just seems like the world they are trying to create is more suited to a video game than to a movie. Because unless you're doing like a series, this world is a little bit too big for the britches of the movie itself. But the idea is very cool. I really like the idea. And I like the idea of a world being taken over by dragons. And kind of the beauty about something like this is that you can set it in a specific time period and say, the year is 2002. We're all living our lives normally. Oh, dragons appear, and then do a time jump. And it's never going to be one of those situations where you're like watching Blade Runner and you're like, oh yeah, they thought that this is what it's going to be like in 2016. Because it's like, no, but if you have dragons take over the world, then yeah, it's going to be in a state of halt and nothing's ever going to progress past 2002. So you never have to worry about like seeing a weird car or something. So it kind of helps you logically, but in terms of the logic of the movie's storytelling, it's all over the goddamn place, and it really is annoying. And I am usually able to look past logical breaks in movies if the movie is good. I can sit there and be like, I don't care why this thing is happening because I'm intrigued by what's happening in the story. This movie, it happens so often that I'm like, none of this makes any fucking sense. And I'm thinking too much about Quinn constantly saying like, they're gonna follow you back. And it's like, they can follow you back at any fucking point. Because I don't care about the characters and I don't care about the story. I'm thinking more about the inconsistencies of all of it. Like I said, like twice already, the movie has a lot of really good ideas and they're trying to jam all these ideas together and it's just not working. Like I said, if it was a puzzle, you had like one puzzle piece from a really good puzzle, and then you're trying to put all these different puzzle pieces together from different puzzles, and you're like, they just don't fucking fit. You know, you're trying to put the top and the bottom, and it won't fucking fit. Or it's too
What
loose.
about side to
it's
side?
too loose in here. This bottom's huge. So yeah, I didn't even really like. The sum of the parts is a weak structure that collapses, and I couldn't enjoy the movie. I found it very boring. Like I was waiting for moments to be like, oh, now I'm really into this. I was into scenes where things are happening and I'm like, oh, this is compelling visually, and then the scene would end and I'm like, now I don't care anymore. It's over. The cool visual that happened for 5 seconds is over, and now I don't care about the fact that they're in a steam shower full of like praying children or whatever their weird made up prayer. What do we do when we're in the daytime? What do we do when we're in the nighttime? I don't care. You already did this once before and I didn't listen the first time and I'm not listening now.
One eye to the sky. Both eyes to the sky.
I think as a review for Reign of Fire, I'm disappointed. You know, I was looking forward to watching this because I hadn't seen it in 20 years, and I was like, maybe it'll be really fun and awesome. It wasn't. This movie is like, okay, here's my review. This movie is one unfertilized dragon egg sitting in the baking sun, waiting for someone to fertilize it, and it just never got fertilized.
And then Matthew McConaughey comes along and over fertilizes it, and then he fist fights. And
then he dies of dehydration.
And then that dragon has no mommy.
No, yeah, it's an unfertilized dragon egg. That's what this movie is.
Cool.
So that brings us to the end of things. And I've only got one question for you guys.
What's that?
Wait. Do I do the other thing first?
You do the thing first.
Okay, sorry.
Because hey, just see this one's the last thing.
For Jason, for Kaylin, I am Steven.
For Kaylin, for Steven, I am Jason.
And for Steven and Jason, I'm Kellen.
I got one question for you guys.
Hey, did you see this one?
Oh, hey, did you see this one over here? Did you see it? Did you see it? Did you see it? Did you see it?